That's Drew.
And that's Mike.
And that's John Hill.
Hello. I did not know about this intro beforehand, but I am here and my name is John.
Yes.
So I do a little intro now, and I'm going to tell the listeners that John Hill is a professional skateboarder, entrepreneur, artist, and the creator behind two YouTube channels, John Hill and Progress Daily. With over 1,100 videos and nearly 1 million subscribers collectively between his two channels, John has built an impressive community based on skating, collaborating, and finding some pure adventure. Be sure to follow his channels for lots of great content and check out progressdaily.com for some awesome skate gear and cool Kai bots. John, thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you for that intro. That was awesome. I don't think I've ever heard my career summarized so quickly and easily. That's perfect. Yeah. Because when people ask me, like,
I was pretty happy to see you were wearing that sweatshirt when you got on the call too, because I definitely wanted to mention those guys.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah. Usually when people ask me like what I do, my first thing is, oh, look, it says welcome John Hill in the background right there.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
When people ask me what I do, I say like, oh, I just skate. And then like if my fiance's with me, she always like nudges me like, come on. And I'm like, no, that's all I do. I just skate. And she's like, he's also a YouTuber. He does this stuff. So I have to like learn how to be like, this is what I do, because, you know, then they're just sitting there like, oh, you just skate? What? I don't even know what that means. I'm like, yeah, like a skateboard. And then they just have to like pull it out of me for the next 30 minutes. And yeah, anyways, thank you for that intro.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And we're eager to talk with you because you do a lot and you do a lot of varied things for sure.
That's very true. Yeah, especially recently. I've just had a lot of, I don't know, with YouTube, especially, I've heard someone say this as a YouTuber. They were like, yeah, when you're a YouTuber, all you do is make videos and then you just have all this extra time. So you have to like, which is totally untrue. I think for most YouTubers, I think it was just their way of being like, trying to sound humble. Cause I feel like if you focus enough on YouTube, you're doing it 12 hours a day, easily. But recently I have found like a way to do YouTube so much quicker than I used to, whereas it's like a formula. You figure out the formula, I think, for any job, work, whatever. And whether or not that formula will grow your brand as fast as it did before, you can finally have time to do other things. So for me, like once I got YouTube sort of figured out, I was like, oh, I have an extra 4 hours in the day. This is nice. I'm like, what should I do? And that's when I just like started drawing a lot. And then I started doing other things. And then, you know, of course, like what you do at that point is you're like, I got 4 hours. Oh, that means I can start 4 new things. And then you're like, and then like 2 weeks later, you're like, oh my God, I can't do anything anymore because I'm just like totally overwhelmed. But yeah, it's always like, for me, it's like, I throw everything at one thing and then I start cutting back. Like, then I'm like, okay, how much time can you actually give to this? And I've realized it's only like maybe a solid hour a day on each creative thing where I'm like totally focused and in the zone. And then after that, I can spend another 3 hours on it. And it's only like as productive as that first 5 minutes. Like I basically wasted an additional 3 hours. So I have to like learn to work on something and step away. I don't know why I went to that long tangent rant, but yeah, there you go.
Yeah, but that makes sense. It opens up your creative process because I feel like you've learned so much from doing YouTube for so long that a lot of people, that's what you're working out in the first kind of year, 2 years, 4 years. But the reality is you're going to continue to learn for your entire career. And what I heard from that is being in corporate America, you can work 9 to 5 and that you turn off your laptop, you're done. But when you start any small business, including YouTube, you could work 13, 15, 18 hours in a day. And you have to, because you're going out there. Every video you do is your livelihood. So you have to put the time in to make it work.
Yeah, easily. I mean, the idea that like a 9 to 5 is just like, that's the amount of hours that you can work as a human is kind of insane, because those hours are just kind of set in place. But if you made it, 6 hours, most people would probably get their jobs done in 6 hours.
Yeah.
If you made it 4 hours, for a lot of jobs out there, especially the ones I used to work where I worked a counter at a skate shop. I did like a delivery job. I'm like, I could do all of this in 2 hours, like everything that I just did in 8 hours. And then like, for me, at least, it was like about dragging on those 8 hours. And that's the beautiful thing about having your own business, company, YouTube channel, is that all your hours can be as utilized as you need them to be. So for me, like if I gave myself 10 hours to do something that I know I could do if I super focused in 1 hour, then I feel like the product is way worse at the end. If I spend 10 hours half-assed than I did on 1 hour. So I've just basically learned how to like schedule my time in that weird way that's like really helped me do more things in my life, like do like the 4 or 5 new projects. Is like with YouTube, it's like, all right, you got an hour, and and then you also learn every single business or company or whatever you grow, like YouTube in itself, it gives you so much more information on how to do everything else, and especially like for someone like me who never thought of himself as like, I'm going to do YouTube. I've never even thought to be like, how do I get my name out there and be like an entertainer by any measure? Once you kind of like, break that barrier to do something new and unique, especially for yourself, you just want to explore everything. You're like, oh, what else can I try? No, maybe I should try this. Like there's a lot of YouTubers who get into like singing and acting, and they're like, I never even cared about this stuff, but I'll try it. And that's like a really fun thing, because each of those things that you break, you start singing and acting, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, should I try theater? I don't know. It seems cool. Like, should I do, and then like, that's when I think, this is what I always say, but like for me, the only goal in life, I think, is to try to make the world bigger. So like, when you're a kid, it can feel really small. You're like 16 years old and you're like, well, that's it. Figured out the whole thing. Like, I've seen everything. I watched all the news channels and everything, but like every new bit that excites you and like opens up the world a little bit bigger, like for me, especially skateboarding, was like, whoa, now everything in the world, you can skate. It just made the world just turn into a different place. And then of course, YouTube was like, now I can film and everything and, talk about everything. And I just try to find little things like that just make the world expand just a little bit. And I feel like that's like, I don't know, at least the purpose for like what I'm doing, like period, I think. So.
Well, let's take that comment that you said there. And, you grew up in a small town in South Carolina.
Yes.
And perspective wise, you probably, you told us yourself, your perspective of the culture there might have been different from, because of your race and who you are.
Right.
And so growing up, how was that? What was that feeling like in South Carolina, kind of being the only Asian or Asian American in your area?
Right. I mean, it was funny because I didn't think about it often until I entered like the angsty teenage years, truthfully. Mm-hmm. Like when I was a kid, you start seeing like examples of how it can kind of affect you in certain situations, but you don't really like explain it to yourself. Like for me, it was like everything just felt subconscious. It was like I knew not what to say. I knew like what to say and what not to say in certain situations. And a lot of it did lend to the fact that not just the fact that I was Asian, but that I was raised by an Asian woman had a lot to do with it, because she teaches you values and traditions based in her area, which was South Korea at the time. So a lot of just who I was as a person was just a little different from the community. But that being said, I never grew up with like, I'm from South Carolina. It's the deep South. I think people can easily have perspectives about it. I never grew up with people like running around calling me racial slurs. Like it was always very subtle. And I think everybody tried, like everybody was trying to be nice. But for me, I think the perspective that affects my perspective the most today, back then, wasn't the fact that I was Asian. It was other things like being from South Carolina. To me, location was always the thing that made me feel the most insecure. Like when I would go to a new place, I'd be like, I'm not afraid to be like, I'm Asian. And I wasn't embarrassed about being Asian, but I was like, I'm from South Carolina. And then they'd be like, what do you do there? Where's that? And I'm like, and then I would get that's when I would get like kind of insecure. And then like, on top of that, I did grow up poor. So like, I think South Carolina and then like being poor, like made me feel a little insecure. And then the Asian thing was kind of like the third layer, but I don't know. I never grew up being like, man, everybody hates me because, of my race or anything. But there's just a lot of qualities that come from in a small town. So like for me, I always relate heavily to like people in small towns who, feel like they don't have, like their dreams can't come true. And I think people in small towns as well, they kind of like feel like they're not a part of the world. Like they're not a part of like this crazy elitist media, whatever. Like they don't feel like they can ever be an actor or a YouTuber or any of these things. Like the cool thing about being from New York or LA, you see hope all around you. You see like examples of what you can be everywhere, right? Like you go to the store, you might see Brad Pitt. Like I went to the mall and I saw Ben Affleck walking around and I'm like, as a kid, like in California, I saw that. But like in small towns, you don't see that at all. There's nothing around you that makes you feel like you can kind of do much. And then, hope is like a rare element that you have to like try to find yourself. So it's easy to just clock out completely. And for me, I think I did that all the time where I was like, I would just be a hater. I would hate on things like out in California because I never felt like I was even allowed to be a part of it. Like, I'm like, oh, all that success and whatever, you know, being famous. Like, I was like, oh, all that's so stupid, because it's like, you know, I would come up with every reason to think it was dumb because I never felt like I was allowed to be a part of it. And then once I moved to California, it felt much different. I was like, oh, I'm actually allowed to like pursue all the dreams that all Americans pursue now. And yeah, they never had to do with race. It had to do with location, I think, more than anything.
It's a super interesting perspective. I would have. I think South Carolina is a beautiful state. People from there are always friendly and kind. So I don't know. Maybe it was just. I don't know. That's interesting.
I think it depends what you want to do. You know, I think it's hard for some reason. I mean, especially how I felt as a kid. I think especially if you don't have money and you're from a small town, you're just like, how do I do anything else? Like, how can I possibly go to California and live that dream? It's like, it doesn't make any sense, because you're like, wait, how much does it cost? Oh, it costs, you know, $10,000 for the first 2 or 3 months. How are you ever going to get $10,000 as some like kid who, you know, doesn't have a degree, doesn't know how to do really anything, doesn't have any version of hope, or, you know, whose parents don't have any idea either? You're just sitting there kind of like, how do I do this? And then I think that's when it's easy to like fall into that trap. And, you know, that's not just Columbia, South Carolina. Every place, every state has a city like that. Even in California, there's small cities where kids are like, wait, I watch these TV shows. That's California. I'm in California. That doesn't feel like the same place. Like, it feels like a completely different world. And I know kids feel like that too, but it's more of just like, I think it's everything that you mentioned all stacked on top of each other. It was like feeling a little like, okay, well, I'm not really a part of this community because maybe the way I look. And then also like, I can't really afford to do anything here. And then it was like compounded. I think that was the reason that I felt maybe like hopelessness to an extent as a kid, or indifference. I think I was just very indifferent to how like the world worked. I was like, I don't care who's doing what, whatever. And then when I found skating, obviously that indifference turned into a little bit of excitement. And then that's when things compounded a little bit better. It's like skating really helped lend me to being like observing different cultures and then understanding new things, and maybe empathy for like everyone in the world who's skating everywhere else. And, you know, I explored scenes, and that really opened up my mind and whatever, my eyes to the world. And yeah, Columbia is a beautiful city though. It's just easy to feel trapped in small towns, I think.
So how did you get into skating at first?
I was actually playing this game that some people may have heard of, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater.
Yes.
Slightly popular,
yes.
But dude, I think about the moment playing that game, and I think of this as like an anime scene where I'm sitting there just like super dull-eyed, super bored constantly. Like at 10, I literally have felt like I figured out life. I was like, I get it. Cool. I was like, how many more years of this? I was like, 70? Oh, okay, whatever. It's fine. Like, that's how I felt at like 10. Like, I had already just been like, cool. But when I played that game, actually, you know what? That's a lie. The year before that, I discovered Pokemon. Pokemon was the first thing that made me go like, whoa, what is this? Like, this is from Japan? Like, I got super fascinated with just like, dude, this culture's amazing. And then, of course, a year later, I found skating. And to me, like, you know, one cool thing, I think something very lucky about my life and childhood, is that my parents were very rebellious kids to their own lives and families. So they kind of taught us like rebellion at a young age, which is really interesting, because everyone I talk to is always just like, my mom and dad made me do this, this, and this, and this. And I was like, man, it's funny, because I did have a militant father. I did have a tiger mom, Korean mom. But like, when it came to like rules and regulations, they were like lax on like actual laws. Like, they were like, those don't matter. You know, I'm like, what? They're like, you know, and it was wild. So like, and you know, I grew up like, I hate to say this, but my dad didn't like cops. And he would just tell us like, hey, cops are bad. And we're like, okay. Like, when we were like, so like when I was a kid, I was like not scared of bad guys. I was scared of cops. Like, I grew up being like, oh, those guys are scary. Those are the guys who, like, I was like, they have a lot of power and they'll do bad things to you. Like, I would tell people that. They're like, what? No, they're not. They're like, some are nice. You got to talk to them. I'm like, no. So when I started skating, it just like, man, all that, you know, rebellious energy that I already had, it was just like, Dad, I found the sickest thing. And he's like, okay. and like showing it to my mom too. I'm just like, I literally like, I was like, look at this piece of wood. You put wheels on it and you just roll around and do tricks. And they're just like, okay. But when I showed them videos and stuff, they started getting it. And my dad got really into the idea of like, wait, he builds, like, he's the handiest man in the world. And he's like,
oh, cool.
Well, I can build you like that rail in the video. And I'm like, really? And then like, you know, the next day he had a flat rail built and he's like, yeah, try this thing. And, you know, it was wonky and terrible, but, you know, then he could just build, he was like, I'll try it again, whatever. So like, it was also, I think it was like the first thing too, that like, you know, my dad and I were working together on something that was my idea. You know, I was like, here's this thing, what do you think? And he's like, whoa, like I interested my dad in something, which I thought was like, you know, crazy for a 10-year-old kid. Cause I feel like, you know, parents are like annoyed at their kids until they're like 18 and ready to move out. I feel like they're just like, oh, all right, dude, keep talking, whatever. But he was interested. And then my mom was just like, you know, kind of indifferent, but she was like, that seems cool, you know, whatever. But I very quickly got my friends into it. You know, I found in my community, everyone who came to my house, I was like, yo, you need to skate right now. And they're just like, okay. So like kind of against the will of, I don't know, 8 local kids, I just forced them all to skate. And I was like, play this game, skate, listen to this music. And they're just like, okay, you know, cause I was always good at taking charge and kind of being like, here's a way that you guys can have fun. Trust me. And they're just like, cool, we like fun. That sounds awesome. So that became my crew for the next 6 years. They came to my house every day and we would just skate every day. And then, you know, I definitely took it a lot more seriously than they did, but they were like, you know, we're kids, and if we can hang out and go explore the world, then that's great. So that's kind of the origin story. I'm sure there's a lot more to it I left out, but that's pretty much it.
And so from 10, 11 to 17, graduation of high school, you skated every day with the same guys, exploring. Let's talk about like, what was your first skate trip to? When did you guys start filming your skating? What was that kind of, because obviously 11, I mean, now kids these days are skating, like, I don't know, there's kids who are like backside lip sliding a freaking handrail at 9.
Yeah,
like,
dude, insane.
I
Yeah,
didn't do that when I was a kid.
Not at all, not at all. I mean, skating, it's just every generation, there's going to be like, it's going to get younger and younger. I mean, there's kids literally who are like barely standing who can like drop in on mini ramps. Like, and once they step off the board, they like fall. I'm like, how can you skate better than you can walk? It's wild. But I mean, that was the biggest idea with skating that I think caught my interest, was the exploration aspect of it. With us, the community, you know, we felt like it was boring or whatever. There wasn't much around. And then the second we picked up the skateboard, I walked by the same store I walked by, you know, 1,000 times growing up. I'm like, wait, they have a curb in front. You can ride off that curb. And then I like looked across the street and I'm like, wait, I've been going to that church for 3 years now, but they have a perfect 4-stair in the front. And that's when it like really opened up, where I'm like, whoa, dude, we can like play with the world. Like I was like, you know, as silly as it sounds, like the world has just become our playground. Yeah. And that's like how it felt as a kid. And from there, it was like, you know, we explored as much as we could. So when I was 12, I went on my first trip to Myrtle Beach, which is 2 hours away. And a lot of my skate friends at the time, actually all of them, were at least a year or two older. So they were like, you know, I was 12 and they were 13, 14, and they were like already like, let's experiment with drugs. So like my first trip, they're like, you know, smoking weed and stuff. And I'm like, man, what is this? And, you know, I never got into any of that, you know, and I think luckily it was because, not that I recommend kids learn this way, but I feel like my exposure to it at such an early age really defeated the whole taboo of it. Like it never felt taboo. So I'd be like, I was never like, oh, I got to try that. I got to figure it out. So I never got into anything like that. But it was cool. And I always felt like I had like dived into this world that nobody at my school would understand. And part of that always gave me like maybe a delusional sense of confidence. Like I was always a confident kid. And I think it came from, you know, being like, dude, I know about this world. You guys don't even understand. Like I felt like I was in like, you know, like I was like Harry Potter. And I basically was like, yeah, I go to this wizardry school and you guys don't even know about it. And that's how I felt the whole time, like while skateboarding as a kid. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it.
And so when did you start to fall in love with, there's two things, right? You also have a love for art, drawing, an affinity for anime and that culture. And I think that probably ties to the love from Pokemon, that you found this whole Japanese culture there.
Right.
But yeah, let's start with that one.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because that stuff has always been interesting to me. But when I pursued skating, I'm a pretty, like, I get really serious about things. So with skating, it wasn't like I was like, I was having a lot of fun going around and just cruising and having fun, but I did take it really seriously and I wanted to get really good at it. So I basically pushed everything in my life away completely. Like I didn't focus on anything else. I just rode my skateboard. And then like my brother was still watching anime a lot. And I remember as a kid, he would be like, hey, you know, there's this new show you should check out. And I'd be like, nah. Like, so I lost my love and whatever and passion for like, you know, animation in general. And like, you know, nowadays I'm watching like Disney all the time and anime and this, I'm like so fascinated with the culture of like illustration, art, design, all that stuff. But as a kid, I didn't allow myself to have any other interests because I was like, if I'm going to like make it out of this tiny, tiny town, I'm going to have to get really good at this thing, because why would anyone in California care about this random kid? So I put all my focus onto that. So unfortunately, like that stuff didn't resurface until like the last couple of years. Like I didn't start like drawing a lot until 2 years ago, 3
Wow.
years ago. Yeah. But once I started, it was like everything else that I get into, you know, the first year or two, I go like, you know, I'm drawing 12 hours a day, and then I'm skating for like 1 hour. And people on my YouTube channel never really knew that these videos that I'm making in 3 hours. And then I'm spending all my other time, like, you know, and I make 2 videos a week on my channel. So I spend 3 hours on these videos. That's 6 hours of work in the whole week. And then I'm drawing for 40 hours plus. And
Wow.
that's why like I got I wouldn't say that I'm good at it, but I think I'm decent at design for multiple reasons. But my drawing is more like designing. I think it's like cute characters that you can kind of just barely alter and how they fit on a page and like the text around it. But my design background comes from my first business that I started when I first moved to California, which was selling baby clothes.
Baby clothes. Yeah.
Yeah. Which I can do a quick summary of that.
We'll get there. We'll get there. We'll get there once we find the moving. So okay, so that's your passion was before you started skating, and that was kind of how you maybe bonded with your brother. Or?
Yeah, I mean that was the thing. Actually, it was funny because he said that when I was like 15. He's like, dude, we don't even like the same stuff anymore. And I'm like, I know, I'm just skating a lot, dude. I'm like, I'm dying. I'm like sitting out here every day skating and grinding and filming so many video parts. And like, you know, I treated it like, I think to be good at anything and to be a professional at anything, you have to practice and do things like you're a professional already. So skating, I was like treating it like I was a professional skater. Like I was like training in the same way. I was like, you know, working out and stuff. And then I would be like, you know, I had all my friends who could film and whatever. And I had this very strict regimen where it's like, hey, we're filming every single day. And if you're not filming me, I'm filming myself with my camera set up on a tripod. And so they'd be like, well, we don't want the final product to be a bunch of tripod shots, so we have to go out and film John. And then like from my jobs that I had at the time, I bought a generator. And then that's when they were like, okay, dude, you're going overboard. Because then I was like, at night, we're skating now. Like when 2 a.m. comes around, we're lighting up this spot because it closes at 12. So we have to wait 2 hours after. And they're just like, dude, I gotta go to school tomorrow. I gotta sleep. And I'm like, for this one trick, it's worth it. Trust me. So I got everyone on the regimen of like, not only traveling a lot, but yeah, just staying out late and filming things with the generator and basically like forgetting that school existed. I was like, hey, this school thing, forget all about it. Trust me. Like that's for people who haven't woken up yet. No, I never say anything stupid like that. I wasn't that woke. But yeah, I mean, I was passionate about it, and I was gung-ho like that for, you know, my entire childhood. And I also think I forgot the question that you asked me.
No, you're good. That was so you put all your eggs in that basket. You right when you found skateboarding, it sounds like that's the shift. And then from there, you're like, nothing else matters. I'm going to do everything I can to become a pro. And so congratulations, you've accomplished your 11-year-old's dream, because that's amazing, right? You released your this month's pro board on Revive. So you've done this. And
yeah,
now like there's a big shift, and this is kind of how we can maybe move towards YouTube or where we're going. But there's a big shift in industries all over the world, but specifically skateboarding. Mm-hmm. When you started skateboarding, you would make a video and you'd send it to a major sponsor label, right? If it was Baker or whoever it is out in the world, Element, and they would pick a team based on the sponsor videos that were sent to them.
Right.
Now, there's this whole world that's changed, and there's this platform that you can post on any time of the day, anywhere, anything you want. And so there's these kind of YouTube skaters, and there's these real, like, I don't know, I want to call it like the path. Yeah, the path to that alliance there. And then you get into a crew, and then you find your crew, and you keep growing through that. And your sponsor tapes go to these guys. And you've kind of aligned on a YouTube-based sponsor who most of the guys on that team are on that. So what are your thoughts on like the shift in kind of the industry itself?
I like things that kind of open up the chance for anyone to be successful in anything. And the truth is, with every industry, especially in skateboarding, the majority of the people who are going to succeed in that industry are from where the industry exists. So in California, those kids have a much higher chance than anywhere else. In New York City, those kids have a pretty high chance because there's a lot of companies out of New York City. But if you're born in California, born and raised, the likelihood that you can go pro is multiplied by 100. I mean, maybe infinite, depending on if you can ever leave your hometown. So what was the question again? I'm sorry.
Just like how the industry's shifting in your
Oh
thoughts.
yeah. I mean, so for me, I've been very excited to see, I mean, all of these people coming out of the woodwork and making YouTube content. And, you know, for me, when I first started, it was sort of an act of rebellion in a sense. It sounds stupid, but like skateboarding wasn't the same thing once I got to California. You know, like when I was growing up skating, I was so passionate about it. When I moved to California, I realized like, oh, the atmosphere of skating is much different because in Columbia, South Carolina, it does feel like sort of outcasting. It feels cool. You know, it feels like you have this cool, like fun, edgy thing that you do with your friends that like people don't really understand. Once you go to California, it's the opposite. All of a sudden, you're the cool kid. You're like the football player in your community. And I remember being like, I don't know how I feel about being like the cool guy and going to the bar and being like, wait, why is there skate videos playing on the TV? This is blowing my mind. And at first, it's like a fun realization. But I realized on that trip and in the first year or two, even though I was hanging out with a lot of people in traditional skateboarding and a lot of people did have my back and were pushing for me, it was rough. I mean, it was really rough to learn how the industry worked in a lot of ways and how many people who were so talented getting looked over skating, not only in my hometown, but in all the cities that I visited as a kid. And then even in California, I'd go to the park and I'd be like, hey, how come you're not pro for every company that exists on the planet? And they're just like, oh, I don't know. You can tell they're like a little socially awkward. And I'm like, man, just the fact that you're like a little hard to talk to is what completely crippled your career into being a pro skater. And that's not the fault of any companies. You know, a company tries to talk to this kid, and if they can't get along with him, I totally get that they pass him up. But I realized that there was so much subjectivity and success in skating. And I think at that time when I was saying like, oh, you know, it kind of doesn't matter how good you are. It just kind of matters more who you grew up knowing or who you know in this industry, even though a lot of people do get very lucky and they get called out from their small hometowns. You know, if they're really that good, like if someone's better than Nigel Houston, they'll probably get noticed in Wyoming, but he won't if he's not playing the game at least a little bit. You know, he has to at least play the game a little bit. And then when I felt myself like playing it too much, I remember, you know, for me, it kind of came from being on Birdhouse and then having like a fallout with the company. And then right after that being like, well, now I don't know what to do, but I'm going to keep skating. And then getting on another company and then having another fallout. Obviously, a lot of the blame is myself because I was just socially awkward dude. But I think at that point I was just like, I don't get it. And I'm like, and I think if I were to have played the game a little bit better and been less of an ass, I was like, what's the future look like? And that was when I decided to stop writing, or, you know, to like stop pursuing these companies, is when I was like, it's going to be me in a socially awkward situation in a van with these guys for the rest of my career. And I think that's when I just clocked out. Like mentally, I was like, I can't do this. And I had basically decided then not to pursue professional skateboarding. Like I was like, all right, I'm done. And I was like, but there are a lot of people out there who I still respect a lot, who I want to film with. And that's when I met it with Nigel Alexander for the first time, who Nigel got a lot of crap from like Cherry Park, the skate park in Long Beach. A lot of people, they were like, dude, this Nigel guy, he's like a YouTube dude. He films all these people. Like, I don't like it. But his content was not at all like how YouTube channels are. There was no crazy, hey guys, I'm this guy. He just filmed skaters, but he filmed everyone. He gave everyone a chance to, like, if anyone was good, he would film them. He had zero like condition to that, unless, I mean, like, because I feel like he told me stories of people being super mean to him, being terrible to him, and he would still go film them. And I'm like, what? Why are you giving these guys a chance when they're mean to you? And what I got was, he was like, because I'm the dude who gives everyone a chance. And I'm like, huh, that's really cool. So when I filmed with him, we got along really well, and he opened up my eyes to like this YouTube world. He's like, dude, he's like, I'll tell you this, if you start a YouTube channel and you really pursue it, you're basically canceling yourself. You're going to blacklist yourself from the industry, whatever that means. And I was like, yeah, but the industry's kind of lame. Like, I was like, I figured out that I don't really like the industry. I found out later that obviously the industry isn't one big thing. It's like a lot of different companies. They're all different. You know, there's not like one like overlord watching over the entire thing. But yeah, I mean, when I started making YouTube videos, I was like, whoa, like I've always grown up filming a lot. You know, when I was 1 year into YouTube, I had filmed 20 video parts, which if anyone knows skating, that's like at least, 2 times, 3 times more than most pros do by the end of their career. And I was like, I already have, and the only person I knew who had more video parts than that was Mark Johnson, who had 21. And then I was like, dude, I filmed so much, but it's not going anywhere. Like, these companies, they only use it as sponsor me tapes, and then your part's gone. And then you put it on the internet.
Mhm.
And if you don't really have a good funnel for the videos, no one's going to see it or care. So for me, it was like, okay, I think I have to create that own funnel for myself. So it's funny that initially when I started a YouTube channel, it was to showcase only like my progression as a skateboarder. Like I was like, I want people to see how much I film and how often I can like put out good stuff. And then once I started mingling with Nigel, and he was like, yo, you should meet my friends, Andy Schrock, Brian Ames. I was like, oh, those YouTube nerds? No, I didn't say that. I was like, yeah, that's cool. But it's funny because I think I did see a video of Braille a long time ago, and my friend showed it to me, and I'll be honest, I think he showed me like an Aaron Cairo trick tip, and I was like, why is this guy talking so much? Like, I was like, I don't get this. He's just like, keeps talking. Like, show skating. What are you doing? And then when I started watching Andy Schrock's videos, I was like, dude, this guy is such a good natural entertainer. And I can see how people think it's goofy, but I'm so entertained. And he comes off as so nice. Like, who am I to sit here and be like, I don't like this guy for some reason. I don't really know why, but and like turn my head to it. So when I met Andy and Sam, it was the first time ever in skateboarding in California that I felt like the whole cool guy feel was completely shaken off. And I went up to them even like slightly cautious, like, man, I've met so many people in skating who I'm like, hey, I'm John. And they're just like, cool. Like turn away. And I'm like, like it happens all the time in skateboarding at every skate park. When I met Andy, Sam Tabor, they were both like, nice to meet you. I'm Sam. I'm Andy. And I was like, ooh, I like this. And I was like, and they just like talking about everything like, oh, what do you do? Oh, you're skating? Oh, that's cool. And that day I skated with him, I was like, you know what? I'm going to try to skate as well as I possibly can because I feel like it is important that they're impressed. I don't know why. I just feel like it's very important. And of course, like right after that, Andy Schrock put me on Force Wheels. And I was like willing to make any type of, I was willing to make YouTube videos. I had basically blacklisted myself and I was like, let's just make everything at this point. And when Andy kind of gave me the green light and was like, hey, you're on Force Wheels. I'm going to start promoting you if you make anything cool. I just, that was when I started making more than 7 videos a week. I did daily videos, but I would also give Sam, Andy, Casey Beckler, Alex Buning, I would give them all extra videos that I would film and be like, hey, if you want an extra video for your channel, here's one. And they were like, free videos? Okay. So I basically started giving all of them free videos on top of doing daily videos on my channel. And that's when they were like, yeah, let's just keep promoting this kid and like helping him out. And they did. I mean, that, Revive is, I think, that's my family. Like, I feel like in this world, Revive is like the closest, big family that I have, which is awesome.
That's a super interesting way to grow your channel. I would have never even thought of like, but to give another YouTuber a video, hey, here's some free content here. You can use it like you will. If you don't have something, if you're going to go on a date next Tuesday, you don't want to edit. This is edited. It's ready to go. That's a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, I thought about it with a lot of kids ask me nowadays too. They're like, how do I start? How do I do this? Blah, blah, blah. And one kid even asked me, he's like, dude, if I make a banger video though, am I going to give up that video to some other guy who, and I'm like, well, it really depends. I mean, if you have 1,000 subscribers and you make a really good video that would do really well on a channel with 2 million subscribers, that is 100% going to benefit you more.
Yeah.
And I was like, plus the video's out there. You know what I mean? Like if you make content for other people to watch and see, it's out there, dude. You don't have to worry about where it is, right? Because like, yes, we all at the end of the day want like as much credit as we can get from the things that we make. But I'm like, dude, if you put it on your own channel, you're just going to have to hope that all these people just stumble on your channel, and YouTube's not going to push you in the same way they're going to push Andy Schrock. So when Andy first, I sent him basically an exact version of how I made my videos, except as good as I possibly could. So my videos were like 10-minute vlogs. I sent him a 6-minute Super California. That's why I'm going to say the longest word in the English dictionary. I gave him this video that, I was like, I know this is going to do well. If you post it, here's a title, here's a thumbnail, here's the thing. And he posted it and I got 6,000 subscribers in 24 hours. And I was like, what? And obviously some of that has to do with like the video that I put out. He's not going to go like, follow this random kid, but I had the backlog. And that's why people always say like, when you make videos, you need to make videos as if you have 1 million subscribers. Like, it needs to be like, they wouldn't be surprised, right? If you had 1 million subscribers, they wouldn't be surprised. Make those kind of videos. So when I sent Andy the video, when people got to my channel, I had the backlog of at least 30 videos by that point that I thought were, that would at least match a channel that had 500K. And I maybe had 30, so that's why I got a lot of subscribers at the time. But yeah.
And so let's talk about your creative process a little bit.
Okay.
It's very interesting. I think we talked about it on our pre-call, and so you talked a lot about a backlog. You've talked a lot about just making these videos, but how do you come up with the ideas? Do you keep a note of like, I'm going to do these 10 things? Are you walking through New York and you're like, oh, that's a great idea? I saw on your channel, or it was on your Instagram, I think today, you posted, here's a great idea, like mimic things. So you saw the $1 million listings and you started to do that series on your side. And that's a great way, to have some creative process. But what are some other ways that you come up with ideas?
Yeah. So for me, what you just said, so on my story, there's a lot of people who, when they start a new path, like start making YouTube videos, they're interested in yo-yos. They immediately type in yo-yo YouTubers and they see ideas and they think like, oh, I can find a unique idea amongst these yo-yo YouTubers, even though these yo-yo YouTubers have been doing this for 3 or 4 years plus and have hundreds of thousands of subscribers. And it's like, it's very difficult for you in the midst of all these guys to find your unique idea by using them as an inspiration. Like if you're using their channel as a way to figure out new ideas, it's probably not going to help that much. And then what happens when you make the video? So let's say there was a skateboarder, Andy Schrock. He makes a video called like 10 tricks every beginner skater should learn. If I make a video called 10 tricks every beginner skater should learn, it needs to be 4 times as good as Andy Schrock's video. And that's probably not going to happen. Andy's so naturally funny. He's got a big backlog. He knows how to edit videos really well. You're going to be the second place video in a genre that you tried to mimic. So why would anyone ever watch your video? Like if you're like not even second, if you're like the 5th best video in that exact genre, there's no reason anyone should watch your video, even if you think that that's like the perfect clickbait. So for me, what I figured out recently is I was struggling with my YouTube channel probably like 2 years ago. And I was doing just that. Like I was like, man, I'm looking at Braille and this video did well there, but the similar concept doesn't do well on my channel. What the hell's going on? And that's when I was just like, well, what other industry excites me? Because my YouTube channel started by implementing Casey Neistat's vlog style with skateboarding, because for some reason it had never been done. He was newer to the scene. And I was like, why don't I just do exactly what he's doing, but as a skateboarder? Because nobody has ever seen that much personality in skateboarding, especially like with what a struggling, trying to be professional skateboarder is actually going through. And when I started like telling that story, people were instantly like, this is super bizarre. And I think at first too, I got a lot of hate, but I remember being so excited about my first hate comment because I was like, dude, look, I'm like reaching out to people. Like I'm like going beyond my scope. And I was so pumped. And then of course it gets kind of old after a few months. You're like, all right, shut up. I get it. But at first it was so exciting. And that's what happened was I borrowed the formula from a different industry. So when I started it, I'm not stepping on Casey Neistat's toes because, I'm not taking any of his audience. And then in my own industry, I'm not taking anybody else's audience because it's a completely new thing. So that's what I was talking about on Instagram when it was like, I do see, since I was one of the first people to do super, super vloggy type YouTube content, and I spend so much of the day coming up with ideas, people are going to mirror them. And I'm like, dude, I'll help you. Like, just ask, instead of like taking the video concept, I'll help you come up with some ideas. So I was basically just saying, dude, like I've been watching a lot of New York real estate videos, nothing to do with skating. Nobody would ever link the two ever. But these videos are like, this is what $1 million buys you in New York City. And I'm like, oh, interesting. And I was like, man, that title really got me. And it's very non-clickbait. It's the exact thing it is. This is the thing that you are about to watch. And I was like, I wonder if YouTube culture has been so ingrained into this clickbait that people are over it. They're looking for just tell me exactly what the video is about. So when I thought of that one day, I was like, wow, that skate park. And I like looked up a skate park and it was like, this skate park cost $2.1 million. I was like, this is what a $2.1 million skate park looks like in Brooklyn, whatever. And it did super well. And then that became like, I was like, I totally forgot. So anytime I get a super harsh writer's block, all you have to do, not all you have to do, like I have the answer to completely fix writer's block. Sometimes it's impossible. Sometimes you're going to be stuck there for months. But a good way to help is to find inspiration in completely different industries. And yeah, you can't find your way out if you dig too deep in your own like confusion. Like if you're confused by your own industry and how to come up with titles and how to find better ideas, and you're just looking in the same industry, you're just going to dig deeper into that writer's block. You're never going to get out of it. So
it's kind of the same logic that you said before about if you have a really great video and you could post it on your channel with 1,000, or you give it to Andy and he has 2 million. It's kind of the same thing. If you're posting 10 tricks that are great for every beginner, and every other guy who has 200,000, 500,000,
right.
5 million is doing the same video, you're never going to be able to grow. And
Totally.
finding that unique, and that points to the best part about YouTube is it's infinite, right? It's the second largest search engine in the world behind Google,
Right.
parent company. So you can go down any rabbit hole you want, and you can find inspiration through those. So I think that's a really great piece to point out to anyone who's starting a channel, that don't be, what is it? Tunnel visioned. Open up the
absolutely.
horizon. See outside of your industry. That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's because it's really easy to get stuck in this idea of like, I understand skateboarding and this is the way skate videos should be made. But in reality, as any creator I think would know, is like, oh no, there's actually infinite ways to not only skate, but to tell the story of skating. Infinite, right?
Yeah.
Like when someone gets on a board and he lays on the board and someone's like, oh, that's not how you do it. I'm like, well, actually it is. Any way that you step on a board is the way to do it. And same with like making videos, making content about skateboarding, doing anything creative. And even with my Progress Daily channel, when I first started, the channel that inspired my first, like I made these 6 videos welcoming writers to my company, and all those videos did super well. One of them got 2.4 million views or something like that. And that's rare for me. And I was like, the reason those videos did well is because I was watching nothing but Disney documentaries. And then I downloaded the soundtrack, like basically the exact type of music I heard in those documentaries. I copied the voiceover. Like I was like, oh, I like the way they're talking at certain points with like this mystical music playing, because it leads to this very fantastical feeling. And I was like, can I do that with skating? Did that for these videos, and they all got like 1 million views plus. And I'm like, okay, well, there you go. So even if it's like the best content out there, you can take inspiration from it. Even if it seems like the kind of content you could never make. Like, how can I compete with Disney? Just borrow some of the inspiration. A lot of people do use their TV inspiration for YouTube videos, and it looks really good, if they can kind of implement it in their own way.
I'm glad you mentioned your second channel. I wanted to definitely start asking about that and where you got the inspiration to start that, sort of why you wanted to branch off from your main channel. And yeah, just let's start talking about starting your second channel and why you started it.
Yeah, I think, man, there's so many reasons I feel like, but Progress Daily in general was like the brand that I started, and it's completely just based off a mantra that I had for myself. So I make to-do lists every night for the next day, and I have been doing that for like 5 years. When I used to do that, at the bottom of the page, I would write Progress Daily. Every single time I wrote these notes. And I would say it in my videos because I was just like, oh, I'm just reading my mantra. So I'd be like, oh, Progress Daily. And a lot of people were vibing with it. In the comments, they'd be like, Progress Daily in caps, and be like, exclamation mark. And I'm like, oh, that's so cool that people like this. So when it was time I was like, oh, I want to sell merch with something on it. I thought of all these names for a brand, and I was like, Progress Daily is too long. It's like not even a word. It's like 2 words, and it's not even how can I copyright that or trademark that? So for the longest time, I was bouncing around all these names. I think like the small screen was one of them, but it's longer. Like, why did I even? And like Melee was one of the names that I actually ended up picking up on again later for something else. But yeah, like Melee, I was like, that sounds cool, but I couldn't trademark that either. Anyways, Progress Daily stuck. And then I was like, also, it's a little unorthodox, because in skating, you have these like edgy, cool 1-word names. It's like Quasi, this, Zero. And I was like, I guess Progress Daily would stand out in the mix of all these like cool, edgy names. And I was like, and it kind of sounds goofy in some way. It's like, I don't think it sounds goofy, but it's definitely just like not what you would expect a skate company to be called. So when I started that's, a few years later that grew and people were buying the merch. And, for me, it was all about like trying to just find a different outlet on expressing how you feel. Like I was always jealous of artists and musicians who could be like, man, they can just sing about how they feel. In these YouTube videos, I can't be like, I'm feeling emotional today. Like I want them to have fun when they watch. So I'm like, well, clothing and design can kind of give me that outlet. So when I was trying to design more and come up with ideas, I was like, well, what do you do with designs? You put them on clothing and whatever. So for the longest time, I was just hiring illustrators and designers to work on clothes. And then, it hit me one day where I was like, dude, I can do this. Which I hate to do that. I hate to be like, oh, this artist did this, I could do that. But I felt like this would be much more authentic if it was coming from me, like wholeheartedly myself. So as all that expanded, the second channel idea came into mind because I wanted to start a team and I wanted to showcase the version of skateboarding that I grew up with. And I wanted people to kind of feel how I felt growing up. So even though I think my channel does give that a little bit, my channel is, I think one reason my channel works is because of, it's just me. Like in my videos, I rarely show friends. It's just like, here's my adventure today. So anyone who watches that can do the same thing. They can get on their skateboard and they can go skate. And I think that's something that I hit that nobody hit yet, because everybody else was like, oh, look at all these friends hanging out. That's what skating is. But not all kids have a group of friends, and they don't even know if they feel like they can have a group of friends. So I wanted to be like, hey, for the rest of you who are losers without friends, no, I'm just kidding. But like for the rest of you, like myself, who have a hard time always just being like, let's meet up with a bunch of people, you can just go film videos by yourself. Anyways, Progress Daily was there to showcase that original side, the side where I was like, or you can have a group of friends and you can do this. And no matter where you are, I felt like everybody deserved a little bit of exposure. So when I first started putting people on the team, it was to showcase riders who I thought fully deserved it, but were underappreciated. And that was it. I had all these other stories to tell that I just didn't feel like fit on my channel. So everything else that I've done, second channel, etc., is like, oh, I want to tell this story. Doesn't match my content, but it'll go here. And that's what all these skate ideas and titles that I had, like, a list of hundreds that I've just written down, like thinking, sitting there for an hour being like, ooh, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. Writing down all these things. That's where it goes. It goes to Progress Daily. So
I was pretty curious to find that the first few videos that are on that channel right now are all podcasts. So I was curious to ask about your podcasting experience too.
Dude, I was so excited about it because I listened when Tim Ferriss was like first started his podcast. I was listening to it. Like I listened to his 1 through forever. And then from there, I was like, podcasts are the greatest thing on the planet. I need to start one day. But like when I first started my YouTube channel, it was originally going to be like a Good Mythical Morning. It was me. Yeah, we actually filmed a video. It was me and my friend Brian Betts, and we like drank. We're like, hey, instead of Good Mythical Morning, we'll have like a little bit of beer. We'll drink like 2 or 3 beers while talking about skateboarding. We got drunk somehow. And like the footage, not drunk, but I started speaking really Southern, which is like what happens sometimes when I drink. And he noticed it because he's from California, whatever. And he was like, why are you talking like that? So it just became this like terrible thing. But still, it's in the archive somewhere. Like I have it stashed away, but it was really funny. And that was originally going to be my YouTube channel. At first I wanted it to be like Good Mythical Morning. Let's just talk about skating. Until I realized like skating is about adventure. It's about exploring. But my experience was good. When I first started, I wanted to do a podcast, and I set up a podcast with Peter McKinnon, who's like this very popular YouTuber, amazing photographer, and like I feel like the most beloved dude on YouTube. Like for some reason, he just can do no wrong. And hopefully tomorrow some crazy gossip comes out about him, but he can do no wrong. So I was like, and we're great friends. So I was just like, dude, I'm gonna do a podcast with this guy and see how it works. Unfortunately, for some reason, there was a lot of pressure. For me, even though he's my friend, I was like, okay, he's still Peter McKinnon though, and people are gonna see this. And if I don't do this right, people are gonna be like, how dare you do such a stupid job interviewing Peter? So I got really nervous. And after doing it, I remember being like, man, that caused me a lot of anxiety. I was like, but let's keep going. So I made a couple more, and I realized I was like, I can do this, and I can interview cool people. I interviewed Sam Tabor as well. I know he was on your podcast.
Yep.
And I was interviewing people, and I was like, this is fun, and this is great, but I can't deal with the anxiety of building this platform while having 2 other platforms. It was while trying to do so many other things. Cause like, I realized for me to do anything and explore any new field, it has to fit perfectly into what other extra energy I have. And for some reason, podcast, I didn't have quite enough energy to like really make it what I wanted it to be. And I think eventually I will do a podcast. And I think when I do, it has to be about something so purely about what I could stay excited about. And of course that could be skating, and it might work that way, but it would have to be something that I like truly looked forward to. It need to be 2 or 3 of my friends. We consider doing it at the Progress Daily Skate Park once we build out the studio space.
Yeah.
That I think could work. Me and like my childhood friends, you know, that would be fun, but it has to be perfect like that. The ones with Peter, unfortunately, I just could not keep up that same pace. Like I couldn't just keep going out of my way. All right, who can I interview who's even more popular than Peter? Well, that's probably impossible unless it's like Joe Rogan. How do I work my way up to Joe Rogan one day? And I just was like, dude, that's a full-time job that would consume me trying to grow this. So I just had to bail.
But it's a very good observation, because you're really thinking about everything like a business, and you've got to protect your brand, because if you start to be too like I don't know, separated in everything you're doing,
Right.
then all the other content's going to start to get worse, and then
Right.
people are going to start to go away. So it's a very good observation. I want to go back to two things you said. So
Cool.
You said 2.4 million views is rare. We talked for the first time maybe 25 days ago, right?
Yeah.
At that time, you had 16 videos with over 1 million views on your John Hill channel. As of this afternoon, you have 21 videos with over 1 million views. And
What?
I had to do the math twice. I went back, and I'm notoriously bad at math.
What in the world? I have 21 videos over 1 million?
21 videos over 1 million, and 3 of them are knocking on the door to get to 1 million. So that's crazy. So let's talk about the first video that you posted that went to 1 million, because I think that's something that is got to be an amazing feeling.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. You're growing your channel. Your videos are taking off.
Yeah, the videos were all doing. I gradually grew most of the time. Most of the time, it was a very gradual growth, and there were a few things that happened that I noticed. You notice spikes here and there. For me, the first spike was hanging out with Aaron Cairo from Braille Skateboarding, and I was like, okay, so people obviously love seeing what they're doing behind the scenes. Maybe I can just hang out with these guys and kind of film what's happening behind. So when I went to the Shred Quarters for the first time and hung out with Revive Crew, filming Andy's truck from behind. And people were really excited about seeing different angles of all these popular people. But you start picking up on some things that do better. So as I was picking it up, it was always a gradual growth. There was never a moment where it was like, boom, I'm hitting 200,000 every video. Great. But the first time I think a video went viral-ish, it was like, I think this video I think it went to 1 million. It was about buying a Walmart board. I said something about like shopping for a Walmart board, just a thumbnail of me in Walmart picking it up. And I think for a year or two after that, I never understood why. And to this day, I barely understand why. And I think I just got caught in the cosmos of this virality that was happening around Walmart skateboards. But when I made it, I noticed that Braille made a couple videos called like testing a Walmart board, and they got millions of views. So I was like, well, I'm shopping for a Walmart board so that I can use it on the Braille channel. I'm sure they won't mind if I just call this video like shopping for the world's worst skateboard. That's what it was called. And then when I put it out, it was clickbait, because the video itself, it's a vlog. There's only 30 seconds of me shopping for that board, 9.5 minutes of me like, hey guys, today I'm going here, whatever. And then I hung out with Braille that day, and for some reason that video went viral. But I realized like, that's when I started learning a little bit about clickbait, understanding like how this works. But no, I mean, I just used that strategy to be like, let's make another Walmart board video and see what happens. But it's a crazy feeling. Yeah. When you are working on this thing and you want virality in a sense, you want to become popular and grow on this platform. Obviously, like when that first video started blowing up, I was like, this is insane. What is happening? But I'll be completely honest. I mean, you just saying that I've had 21 videos, that's a cool feeling.
Yeah.
But in this day and age, like with that video that hit 2.4 million views on Progress Daily, I almost knew it was going to do really well. I didn't know it was going to get that many views, but sometimes there is just so many things that happen and the story is just left untold. Like you watch a good show and the last episode is terrible and you're left with like 6 cliffhangers. The next guy who makes a YouTube video going, hey, here are these 6 cliffhangers that everyone in the world was wondering about, that video is going to go viral.
Yep.
And the video that went viral recently was something about like why Carlos Lastra left Braille, because Braille is a lot more protective of their company because they have 20 plus employees than I am, because I have like 3 and 4, and I'm like, hey, I'm willing for all this to burn down any second. Like, let's all just do whatever we want all the time. If it burns down, it burns down. So I'm always willing to talk about, like, you know, whatever. But of course, that video, as clickbaity and stuff as it was, the video is just a praise to Braille. You know, the feeling, it kind of sucks to have to do this on YouTube sometimes, but negative works better than positive in terms of titles. So saying like, you know, why Carlos left Braille, or instead of saying like Carlos's awesome new life, you know, it's like, instead of talking about his gain, you talk about his loss. But what happens is when people click the video and you immediately go into nothing but gain, I think that's a great feeling. I think for people to be like, oh, I was expecting this negative thing, but Carlos, they're only saying good things about Braille. They're only talking about how awesome Carlos' new life is. Anyways, when things like that happen, you can kind of feel that something is going to go viral. You can kind of feel the way that the world is working. And that's like a perfect example, is like basically you being the finishing touch to a long awaited ending to a story.
Yeah.
Other than that, when things go super viral, I don't feel too crazy. Like, I'm not too like, yes, because it really does seem like chance sometimes. Sometimes, like, you know, I'll make a video that was no better than my last 5 videos, and when it goes viral, truly, I don't really feel anything. Like, I'm kind of like, oh, cool, it did well. Because, you know, as long as it hits that one number, for me, it's like, if they're hitting like 100K consistently, that makes me really happy. If they all start hitting 40 or 50, then I'm doing something wrong that makes my videos less interesting to the people who went out of their way to subscribe to me. And that's why I feel the pressure to have videos do well in terms of numbers, is because that's like, you know, 50,000 people who are now disappointed with the videos that I'm making. And that to me is like the killer part of your channel doing worse. So.
And that you sort of mentioned some things there. And I did not mention them specifically in the intro with the numbers that I was given, but you're about to approach 2 very big milestones on each of your channels. On your main channel, the John Hill channel, you're approaching 1 million subscribers very soon, which that definitely is not luck. That's not chance. That's a lot of hard work and building up a community. And a similar story with Progress Daily. You're about to hit 100,000 subscribers, which also is a big thing for you because you're probably going to get a plaque, right?
Yeah, exactly. Oh. I didn't get my original plaque for the 100,000 because I had it sent to my Cincinnati house, and I think they stole it. Like, I think the people there, they literally sent me an email saying, "Here's the plaque. Do you want it?" And I said, "Yes, please. Here's my address." No reply. Never talked to me again. I think what they did was,
we know who this guy is now. We're keeping this.
Yeah, that's what I think happened. I think they looked at him on YouTube and they were like, you know what? Maybe we can sell this or something to him one day, which is like terrible. But I bet that's literally their mindset. Because I've had people approach me being like, "Hey, do you want to buy like at John Hill on Instagram?" Like when that first happened, I mean, or at John Hill on YouTube. I mean, the amount that they ask for, you're like, no, I'm good, man. Because it's not that important. You know, like the most famous people sometimes, I mean, like what, Champagne Poppy is Drake. I bet he's just like, yeah, I could pay this Drake guy like 35 million, or Champagne Poppy's fine. You know, whatever. It's like why bother at a certain point? Because I feel like it's just like
people are still going to follow him at no matter what. Like, it's not like you're
exactly.
Well, I'm not following Drake because he's not Drake on Instagram.
Exactly. Yeah. Totally fine. So, what was the question?
Not really a question there, just highlighting your approaching milestones.
Yeah. No, it's very exciting. And the million plaque, I just absolutely cannot wait. You know, I think that was kind of early on when I started being like, can I hit 1 million subscribers? I didn't even think that was humanly possible. I didn't think 100,000 was humanly possible until I started hitting the numbers. When I started hitting 100K consistently, I was like, there's no reason that I can't have 100,000 subscribers if that's how many people are watching my videos on a consistent basis. But yeah, I mean, when I started YouTube, it can get to your head really quickly. Like when you start growing on anything, not in just a way of being like arrogant, but it can go to you to where you're like, oh, you can get too lost in the fantasy of being like, I'm going to be famous. Like I never for a second was like, wow, I've made it and I am, you know, big time. I've always thought like, oh my gosh, I can get more. And even that can be a very dangerous progression, because when I started getting 100,000, obviously the next thing I was thinking was like, can I get 1 million views consistently? When I first hit 1 million, I'm like, 1 million views. I was like, can I replicate this every single video? And then you really beat yourself up because, you know, a year goes by and you're like, how come I'm not getting 1 million views on every video yet? I wanted to do that right away. It doesn't make any sense. And what you have to learn is like, you just have to find the balance of what you're willing to do and like the amount of views I think you're just comfortable with. And at a certain point for me, it was like, I am not willing to film a 1 million view video every day. Like that's just going to destroy me. So you have to find that balance. Eventually.
But you mentioned something else that I found curious, which was sort of a responsibility to your subscribers. And what kind of, I'm curious too, because I just can't imagine, but what kind of power, or what does it feel like to have the reach and the attention of 1 million people at any given time? And then what sort of responsibility does that make you feel as sort of that lead point person that can literally just reach 1 million people with the click of a button?
It feels very fulfilling. I think that's the side of it that people don't really talk about. I think they're like, oh my God, it's so cool. I appreciate it. And it does feel like it's cool. I don't know. To me, it feels fulfilling because to me, it's like seeing that there's like a 900,000 people who just back who I am. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's the part that excites me the most, is feeling like extremely accepted. You know, like I've said this plenty of times to people very close to me, but I've always felt like George in the jungle. Like, I'm like, one day I'm going to have to step into society and become a normal person. And I have no idea how to do that. And I've always thought people looked at me like, where'd this dude come from? He literally just walked out of the jungle. He's all dirty from skating. He's like gross. And, you know, I actually kind of looked like George of the Jungle before with all my hair and craziness. And I'm like, I'll never be able to fit into this. And there's no like real world, I think, where like, I'm like totally accepted. Like I've never felt like I could be totally accepted ever. And then when you have 900,000 subscribers, it's undeniable. I can't be like, nah, I still don't feel accepted. It's like, I can't argue this. I can't argue this number. And I think that's what it makes me feel is accepted, which there could be a lot of issues with that maybe, but for me, that's something that I walk away with very happy, being like, oh, I'm accepted by this many people. And then of course the responsibility that you feel is like, well, I want all these people who decided to click subscribe and decided to like be notified that I'm making a video. I want all of them to be, I want their lives to be better every video they watch. And that's, you know, that's not going to happen. Like, I'm not going to be able to make a video that's going to like alter your state of mind by the end of it. But if you needed to hear like, you got this, then my video is perfect. Because at the end of every video, I basically say, progress daily, keep killing it. Like, hey, you're good, keep going. And that's, at this point, all I'm trying to do is like a little bit of entertaining, skateboarding, show you the world of what I'm doing, and then tell you, you're good at the end. And that's like all I want. You know, all I want to feel as a person is like, I want to watch channels who like at the end, I'm like, sick, I'm going to go work now. I feel good. Let's go. Yeah. And that's why I think the channel even exists now. It's just a little pep talk.
Yeah. I think it's, you might get the clickbait with the title, right? You might use negativity to get to the title, but even with the Carlos Lasher video, it was unbelievably positive the entire time from both sides too. It was like, like
really well done.
You really do a good job of keeping that positivity. And I think that's what drew us very much so to have you on, because the whole goal is to get maybe kids who might align, maybe not feel like they fit in somewhere, maybe have some insecurity, to realize there are hundreds of thousands of them, 911,000 for you. Right. And so create a community of those people and put them in a place where they feel like they're part of the community. And you do a good job of that. I really appreciate that for anyone out there. So
thank you. Well, I wasn't saying absolutely to me doing a good job of that. Yeah, I know. Thank you for saying that. I'll say absolutely the thing before that. You're right. I do a great job. No, thank you.
You do. You should. So one cool thing that must be like an unbelievable feeling is you go to a skate park now, right? Wherever you are, Venice, Columbia, South Carolina, New York City. Mm-hmm. What's it like to see a kid who drops in on a skateboard that says Hill on the bottom of it?
Blows my mind. I mean, I have kids like who will run up to me with the deck and be like, look what board I have. I mean, I don't know. You know, what I've realized now is that I think I've just come to such a point of like peace in my life, of like just pure like calm about how cool everything has turned out. Like it didn't boost me energetically the way I thought it would. I thought like every new win was like, and basically like by the time I'm 32, so many good things are happening that all day I'm just gonna be sitting there screaming in joy, like, like all day. I mean, that's how I feel inside a lot, but it turns into more of just like, like, thank God, you know, like this is so cool. This feels good. So when the kids run up to me at the board, I mean, I don't know. I barely outside of that think about like, think about how all this it doesn't hit me the same way. Like when I see a kid with a board, it's not like a whoa. It's more of like this very like, man, like I'm really terrible at explaining this. It's very hard to explain because it's like,
it's a feeling that not many people know. And I'm sure it's a feeling that it's just got to be something that's unexplainable, you know? It's something that's so cool.
Yeah, I also think that's it. I think it does become unexplainable. And I think it's like, you know, I think early on it's like asking like, you know, someone like, what's it like having sight?
Yeah.
They're just like, I don't know. And then eventually, like when any good thing happens, unfortunately, you do grow accustomed to it. You know, you have to take the time to appreciate every little good thing that happens. And for me, since I have been working very hard at making a lot of good things happen, not every day do I sit there and go like, man, I'm so thankful for that, you know, because I could do that all day, every day. I could literally just keep going on about what I'm thankful for. And some days I do. Some days I sit there for an hour and I'll literally be like, man, these 2 arms, dude, 10 fingers? Are you kidding me? That's like, and you know, for me, it's easy for me to appreciate those things. And my headphones are about to die. Hold on.
Mine did that already about 5 minutes ago.
Oh, really? The AirPods?
No, these guys did.
Oh, okay. I think I'm good.
Okay.
Well, actually, you know what?
Go ahead.
Let me find some headphones real quick.
Okay.
Cool.
All right, 1 second.
Did you happen to ask any of the viewer questions yet?
I was going to end with them. Yeah, I have them.
Sweet. Yeah, I was going to say we could probably use this little section talking about subscribers.
Yeah.
To transition to the subscriber questions.
Yeah, and then we can close out.
Sounds good, dude. Sounds great. It's been a good one. He's really cool to listen to.
Epic.
Yeah.
Epic. No, man, I'm amped. I love every hour on the hour. You just hear the church bells in the background. It's so funny.
Yeah, I love it. I've gotten so used to it. It's like the train in Winter Park. I really love it. It's fantastic.
Exactly like the train in Winter Park.
I think it's so great. It makes me very happy. They play music with some of the other church bells nearby, like this other church that's like a block behind me. They'll play like Amazing Grace and Christmas music stuff with the bells. It's
really that's cool. So cool. Yeah, we don't have. We're in like this little neighborhood. We don't have that. Can't hear you yet. You got to go up into the preferences.
Oh, got it.
Woo, there you go.
Sweet.
All right.
Could you guys hear me that whole time?
No.
Oh, okay. Cool. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Hey, it happened to me too.
Yeah, it happens. All right. So I'm gonna just write a time code down. Cool. All right. So with that being said, we'll kind of roll into one other thing. So we're adding a new feature to the show, and it's going to be from the subscribers. We're going to get some questions specifically from them. We put it out there. You tossed it out on your Instagram. We got over 300 responses of kids who wanted to ask you questions. Anything from I don't know this kid's name. I didn't write it down. But are you going to come to Finland? I did not know how to answer that. But there were some really good ones that we liked, and they kind of fit the mentality that we're trying to put out there. So we have 3 questions for you. And one of them is, how did skateboarding help you grow as a person? That's from Reyes West 17. I'm sorry if I butcher anyone's name.
How dare you?
I know.
It helped in a lot of ways. I mean, skateboarding, it brought me a community. It helped me kind of explore outside of my territory. I think what it did the most was help grow my empathy. To me, I think the most important thing you can do as a human being is to grow your empathy, because I actually think it's a direct correlation to intelligence. I think the only way you can truly grow in terms of intelligence is to be fully accepting and listen to what everyone has to say. Because if you're blocking people out, or if you're assuming or judging or being like, I don't really care about these people. Oh, these people have this opinion, whatever, that doesn't match mine. How can you possibly grow in intelligence? How can you ever be smarter if you have a preconceived notion about really anything? The less preconceived notion you have, the better. So skateboarding really supplied that. For me, it was all about like not only being thrown into a new culture, but also understanding that there is this new culture that brought me all this joy. There must be all these other cultures, subcultures, etc. Plus, skateboarding is like extremely diverse in every way. One thing that you find right away is like, people are from all over. You know, every skater, at least when I was a kid, was trying to find each other. So we'd meet people from
all over the country who are like, yeah, we just stumbled here. You know, we got in a van, started driving, here we are. And then you learn about their lifestyle and you meet a lot of new people from outside of your circle. So empathy, that's what skateboarding really gave me the most of.
That's a great answer. And so from _jfish_, what keeps you going?
I don't know. A lot of cocaine, I would say, probably. Usually, I'm just kidding. What keeps me going? Kind of what I mentioned before is finding little things that expand my world, that make like the world seem a little more exciting. It really is. Everything comes down, I think, to the little things. And one day, hopefully most people will grow out of this mindset of thinking like, I shouldn't like this or I shouldn't like that because it's either too immature or silly or goofy. And that was one reason that I stopped, watching like animation or, when you grow up, when you're 14 years old, you're like, oh, I'm too cool for this now. I'm too cool for this now. But for some reason, when you hit a certain age, you start kind of going the other way where you're like, dang, Pokemon's sick. Like when I was like 28, I was like, why didn't I just keep loving Pokemon and all these, Japanese cartoons? So I'm sorry, I keep losing train of thought.
I think that's what it is. What keeps you going is.
Oh yeah. So right. Yeah. It's always just about exploring, just seeing new things that keep me slightly excited. And I focus all my attention on not, I think everyone asks themselves questions that I think hurts them. But I think one thing that might not be as positive as people think is the question of what makes me happy? What's going to make me happy at the end? Because happy is such a massive idea. I mean, it's like love. It's like, man, I love this cheeseburger. I love my wife. It's like the same. So I think happiness kind of falls into that same category where it's like, man, I'm really happy when I eat a good meal, but I'm really happy when I became a professional skateboarder. Two very different feelings. But I think one thing, at least to me, that's more tangible is the idea of excitement. So I always say, I don't aim to be happy at all. I never think about happiness. I just think about being excited. What's going to stimulate me? So when I wake up and when I make my to-do list, obviously I have a job to do. So I write down the things that I have to do. But even during the day, I do them in ways that I find are exciting. I'll be like, you know what? I'm going to go visit a new coffee shop that I've never seen before. That's exciting. And I'm going to do my work there. But every day, I think it's about trying to add an element of the unknown, of using your creativity and all that stimulates other things. Like, when I spend the morning to do something that I feel like is creatively exciting, it stimulates a new idea, a new feeling. Maybe I should go down this avenue. And of course you have to leave yourself open for serendipity. It's a weird sentence, but always allow it in your life. And if you're too strict with your time and schedule and you don't leave room for those crazy things that might happen that lead you down a different tunnel, then you're blowing it. You gotta allow it to seep into your life.
Okay. And then our final question from poll_less is who inspires you?
That's a good question.
These are great questions. I was shocked with what we were going to get. We got a lot of skateboarding questions, which I think we covered, but
yeah. Who inspires me? That is a great questiono. God, this is going to sound like I might have to do a couple of answers because the first one's just too cheesy. It sounds like such a cop out, and I'm sorry. But my fiance is a huge inspiration. But that being said, my fiance is a huge inspiration for a lot of people. So I think that's so I think she actually kind of warrants that. She is a tech YouTuber who is at, 700,000 subscribers. She has a lot of subscribers. Yeah. She does very well on YouTube. People love her. She's awesome. But she inspires me because she's basically good at everything I'm not good at. And I would say that it's kind of works the opposite way too, where I'm good at everything that she's not good at. So when we found each other, I think one thing that I think we're very similar in the way that we're gung-ho about exploring this world and seeing what it's all about. So when she met me, she saw that I was really into the skating thing. And then I was just like very focused and like, I worked hard for like this athletic thing. And she had never seen that world. And then she saw like how consistently I was making videos and kind of the grit that I was more of. But what I appreciated was the fact that she was so, she was so positive. Like she was like this like shining light. And I remember being like, why are you so happy? Like that doesn't make any sense. You're not supposed to be that happy. But when you learn her secrets and you learn like the secrets of these happy people, them just being like, oh no, I've just, this is how you should feel about yourself. And then having her kind of teach me like, no, this is what I think of myself, and that's how you should feel too. Because if you're ever bummed on yourself, that's not good. You need to like think about all the good that you do, and you know, whatever. That sounds silly, but meeting people to me that are like almost the opposite in a lot of ways is what inspires me. On top of that, I would say, who's the guy who made Family Guy? I always forget his name, but he's like one of my.
Seth MacFarlane.
Seth
Seth MacFarlane's one of my biggest inspirations.
I was going to ask about Hayao Miyazaki too, if you're a Hayao Miyazaki.
I love him. I love him, dude. He's the greatest. I mean,
so good.
Yeah, I think I want to be just like him, except less mean to my kids. He seems like a very intimidating tiger father.
Yeah.
But in terms of like how he speaks about his like creative process and how he just kind of articulates like the world around him, I find very inspiring.
Yeah.
Just anyone who doesn't take any of this too seriously. I mean, it's good to take things seriously, but yeah, like when you can kind of joke about how everything is, and you can look at everything in the world from a new perspective. Anybody who like speaks in a way where I'm like, oh, I've never heard anyone talk about that in that way, that inspires me. And that's like Naval Ravikant is a guy who's he was on Tim Ferriss's podcast too, but he's like my Yoda. Like I literally listen to him to be like, what shall I do? And you know, I'm not gonna even try to impersonate the yoga voice, but then he gives me the right answers when I watch his interviews and stuff. So say Naval, Seth MacFarlane, Sarah Dietschy. Yeah, that's about it.
Saying your fiance is not a cop out at all. I mean,
Okay.
I would have said the same answer. My wife is an inspiration to me every day. And I love that that's what you guys have, because I feel the same way about my wife. Is they say opposites attract. I couldn't be more true to that. Like she is an unbelievable writer. Drew writes all of her intros. When we have a website, he'll write it all. You don't want me to write anything, but that's the benefit. That's how you create a great relationship. You complement each other's.
Right. And yeah, I guess it's not a cop out, because I mean, you're like, you're so inspired and stoked on this person that you're with them.
Marry them.
Yeah, like that. You want to be with them forever.
For sure.
Yeah, it totally makes sense actually. So there you go.
Not a cop out at all, right? You
Cool,
put a
cool.
ring on her finger for a reason. So
True.
no, it's
True.
amazing. So hey man, I look forward to the growth of the Progress Daily channel. I look forward to seeing you hit 1 million, which I don't think it's going to take that long.
Thank you.
And we really, really, really enjoyed the time with you. I don't have any more questions for today, but I'd love to. I mean, I don't even know if we got through a quarter of what we wanted to. It was just
So much left out. So many things I was like, oh, I didn't touch on that, but that's fine.
We can always come back to it. So,
True.
Drew, do you have any other questions?
No, I don't have any questions. Just thanks again for your time. You know, it was really cool hearing your perspective on some things. And I heard a lot of interesting things that I would definitely like to follow up on in a second conversation. So all I got to say is thanks again.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thanks for
your
letting me
time,
speak. I don't do podcasts very often, so this always feels like I'm like, oh my gosh, I have a lot to ramble about. I didn't even know it until I started talking. So thank you.
There's no pressure, right? It's the other side of the podcast world is just have fun.
Totally. And I
Yeah.
appreciate that. So yeah, thanks for having me on. And
No problem.
yeah, man, I'm stoked to see how this turns out.
Yeah, me too. And so everyone listening, we'll put all of the Progress Daily. Go check out some merch on. Unfortunately, we're filming this on Cyber Monday. I don't think Cyber Monday deals will be available for you on Wednesday. But check out the website, pay full price, whatever.
Thank you. Yeah.
No, check out his collaboration with Keen Ramps and his YouTube channel, Instagram. Do you have Twitter?
Yeah.
Okay, check out his Twitter. We don't have Facebook, but if he has Facebook, go for it. So yeah, we'll link everything below, and make sure you follow him. Get him to 1 million. Go follow his fiance too. Get her to 1 million.
She rolls.
Close, but not as fast as him.
Exactly. Yeah. Follow her after you follow me.
Yeah.
Or just don't follow her so I can beat her. That's what I really want.
Once you hit 1 million, then everyone go. No, I'm just kidding.
Then go follow her. Exactly.
No, I want the race to be tighter, so everyone follow us.
You're right. It needs to be more combative.
Man, hey, I appreciate the time so much.
Of course.
I look forward to catching up again soon. And yeah, I couldn't say anything other than this was amazing.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Same.
Thanks, John.
Yep.